Cool. And we are live. JT here. Welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are watching our conversation on YouTube or on Facebook, whether you are listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distraction and get laser focused on the here and the now. And I guarantee you, you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. Before we kicked off and went live, we were just mentioning how, life's really all divine timing. And we connected a little while ago, and it's always interesting how, things happen exactly when they're meant to happen. My guest in the huddle today is currently serving as a teacher, coach, educator at St. Roch here in Ontario. He was recently named the U16 Team Ontario Men's Tackle Defensive Coordinator. My guest in the huddle today is Jerome Walker. How are you today, brother?
I am great. Thanks a lot for having me, JT. Appreciate this, man, so much.
Hey, it's all good, brother. Before we get started, I'd like to remind our audience that one of my daily practices is this idea of counting your blessings. And it's a practice that I challenge myself to do every day. Some days I do it better than others, but I'm a firm believer that the biggest blessing you can give anyone is your full time and energy. So I just want to thank you so much for giving me some of your time and energy and our community. So thank you very much again, brother.
No, thank you. I'm so excited for this.
Okay. So the first thing that I always like to remind people in the huddle is that life is a game and games are supposed to be fun. I had a coaching colleague and a great friend that said, we all have our quirks. We all have these things that make us unique and different. So celebrate it. So I'm curious, what's an interesting fact that maybe a lot of people don't know about you that you'd be open to sharing with our community today?
Sure. You know what? Actually, my first love, football has been a part of my life pretty much my whole life, but one of my first loves, and I'm still very heavily involved in it, is teaching and coaching martial arts. I'm actually a martial arts master at Taekwondo. So it's a big part of when I'm on the football field and not with my kids, I'm in the dojang and I'm helping coach there or teaching. So that's been a big part of my, I guess you could say, my journey to, figuring out who I was as a leader or as a coach or a teacher. So big part of my life, which not a lot of people know about, but unless you are really close to me, that you pretty much know that.
Okay. It's interesting. I did notice some of those pictures there and I was just thinking, okay, so I know that, that if I'm hanging around with you, you got my back. It's someone good to be hanging around with. So that's awesome. So I'm curious, Jerome, it's obviously very evident that sport has played an important role for you in your life. First, you were a high quality athlete, and then you transitioned into becoming a high quality coach. So I'm curious, what lesson have you gained from sport? And again, I know there's many that you still find yourself applying to other areas of your life today.
You know what? I think one of the biggest lessons, as you mentioned, there are so many. One of the biggest ones that I apply on a daily basis is, I take passion. Through sport, it's so easy to, once you're passionate about anything, I find that it's easy to be successful, right? So just doing things for the sake of doing something, I find is not good enough. Obviously, you got to be loving what you're doing. Like that old saying, you know, if you love something, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So I found that,
Mhm.
whether it's through, Taekwondo or through football, my children, just good time with family, I find that as long as it involves passion,
Mhm.
that you can never go wrong.
Mhm.
You feel fulfilled in a sense,
Mhm.
and that fulfillment also leads to, or it's almost a conduit for giving. Giving back
Mhm.
to others and serving others in that same light. So
Mhm.
as much as I feel my heart's fulfilled in doing things that I love, at the same time I'm giving back, which is so much more rewarding.
Mhm. And it's interesting you share that. And what I really heard from you is it's easy today to get in this space of like just going through the motions, right? It's
Yeah,
easy sometimes to get into that. But what I really heard from you again is that idea of that when you approach and play the game of life with passion, things just seem to flow. You seem to just, it seems to feel a little easier, a little bit more effortless when you
yeah,
approach life that way.
absolutely. And let's face it, like you mentioned, post pandemic, it's very easy to kind of, let me just survive this, or let's just get through this and go on to the next thing, and people, I guess we all kind of find that a lot of us we're struggling with that, just kind of
Mhm.
figuring out, okay, who are we really and what do we really want to put our time into, and what
Mhm.
can go along and just just to take whatever's happening and just to be okay with it, I find is what a lot of people are accepting. But it's I find that it's easier to not easier, it's more beneficial to stop and think about what it is that's going on and to be more passionate about that and figure out, is this what I want to do, and then if it is, what's the next step, what are my goals and how am I going to get to my goals, and
Mhm.
even as an educator, it's something that I'm trying to really emphasize with teaching my students is, okay, then, what are your life goals? And a lot of the students are, having a hard time figuring out what the next plan is, which is acceptable because, as a young person, it's, you're always trying to figure out your way. But the next thing is, okay, well, let's plan something, right? What's the next
Mhm.
step? And what are we going to do to work towards that? And I find that once they start doing that, it's easier to find, okay, this is what I love, this is what I want to do. Now I could actually, show my passion and be proud of what I'm doing and move towards something. So
Mhm.
that's what I've kind of noticed in the classroom and on the football field. It's as you know, coach, it's the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Have athletes who have different aspirations. I want to go play college ball, or I want to, I want to be a coach, or maybe I want to go out to the workforce. Whatever it is, everyone has different goals. So I want to go pro, and once they figure out what that path is, it's so much easier to be passionate and to follow that path and help guide these students and the players down that
Mhm.
path as well.
I love it. And again, what it really reminded me is the power of asking questions,
Mhm.
right? Like thought-provoking questions and challenging people in a loving way to actually stop and think about what they really want in life, whether it's on the football field, whether it's in school, whether it's in their relationships. So I'm curious, is that something you always understood, the power of questions, or was there a great coach or a teacher or mentor that really helped you understand the benefit of asking questions and, more importantly, actually stopping and actively listening to what people share with you?
You know what? Yeah, I think growing up through high school, I didn't ask a lot of the questions back then. I feel like I didn't really get it then. I felt like I just kind of, this is my role. I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go along, and do what needs to be done. But I didn't really push that ceiling. And I thought, because for a long time, I thought, by not questioning was the way. You weren't supposed to question and move forward. You just got to do what was asked, and that was it. Uh, it probably wouldn't be up until university. I've seen a lot of great. My coaches were all fantastic. I was very blessed to have such great coaches to help me throughout my life,
Mhm.
from Pee Wee football right through to university football.
Mhm.
I remember my coach, Coach Tom Gredis. He coached me at York, and I remember, I learned so much from just being critical about myself. Asking about, okay, what I've done, what's worked, what's not working in film sessions.
Mhm.
When I'm seeing guys, get to the next level, asking, what the path was for them and what needs to be done of me. And I found that I became the best version of myself through that process. So yeah, I could definitely say that I didn't really have that skill set or that know-how at that time
Mhm.
until, I got a bit older and I started to realize, okay, this is the way, this is what we need
Mhm.
to do as growing people. right? And I think that's kind of just resonated ever since. It's been consistent.
Mm. And it's interesting, again, hearing you share that, it just reminded me that, it took a little bit of time, right? It took to university to where your mind actually became open to again, loving yourself tough, challenging yourself to go, hey, what's working, what's not working, how can I get better? And it's interesting when you start to do that and you start to look within, it's amazing what blessings start to flow into your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was it. And I felt like, and being a social science teacher, I know JT, I just had this conversation a little bit before we started today. Like, that's it. That's when I realized this is my calling, almost so much a vocation where, I'm going to use that, that process of just being really critical. And I think the thing is, and a lot of young people, and I found, and still kind of happens today, where they think that criticism is negative. It's it shouldn't happen, but only through criticism can we really find out, who we really are and where we're going to go. And, I think that's important, that we really emphasize criticism as a positive, constructive thing. And that's what I found really helps. And the sooner that we learn that, the sooner the process begins, that we can start, moving towards greatness, in a sense, where we're really figuring out, what we're really capable of, right? Instead of settling for just what we feel as though is it, right?
Yeah, no, and you have so many great points there. Again, hearing that, like, it's easy at times, and we're all, it happens to all of us, right? We all have our blind spots. It's easy to settle for average. It's easy to settle for the status quo. But it's interesting, like you said, when that feedback, right, is given in a constructive way instead of a destructive way, it's amazing how that ability to love someone tough actually allows you to bring your greatness to the surface. Absolutely. So I love that idea of, again, making, ensuring that it's constructive feedback.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like, and that's, if I could take apart, anything from my time at St. Roch coaching, is, for me personally, I found that that's been the best way for us to show our love for our students, is that the students see that we care as much as to be hard on them, as hard as we need to, because we know what they're capable of. Again, from as small as, making the right read on a play, or, or from, their classroom efforts and what they're getting in school, or how they're with their relationship with their peers and their parents and their teachers. I find that these young people see that, they see that we're actually giving that time to make sure that we're paying attention to those things. And that's really proves evident down the line, right? They respect it, and then that's what brings them in. Being hard, that tough love, and because a lot of times they're not getting it. Unfortunately, in our demographic, and these kids are living in these situations and families where they don't really have maybe the same amount of love given to them, or they don't really see it in their households, they don't really see it among their peers, and so when they come to play football, they're getting that. And they feel alive. They feel, okay, I'm important. I'm part of this thing here that we're all, and that, to me, has been the biggest, most fulfilling thing I've seen through my time coaching at Roch, is being able to be tough, but at the same time, like, sharing the triumphs and celebrating the little things that really make it so they feel important.
You bring up, again, so many great points there, and I love how you shared this idea, because last year I had the opportunity to meet and connect with a few of the St. Roch's football family. And it was amazing how well spoken the young men were. Like, just, please and thank you, coach, that kind of, old school, but still, I feel those are timeless. And then it was interesting that when the announcement that you were going to be serving as the defensive coordinator, I had a message from a T-Mobile parent who was just singing your praises and just saying, hey, Coach Walker is amazing. Again, just shared how you helped be a shining light in his son's life. And it was just, I was like, this is where, right? Where you don't even know, right? There was nothing saying this parent had to take time out of their busy life to do that. But just, again, just that message, I was like, hey, Coach KP, like, this is exactly what we were looking for. So again, kudos to you, brother.
Oh, thank you. I know, I appreciate that. Wow. It's a nice surprise.
So, So I'm curious, right? You've created a level of success at St. Roch, right? You've been a big part of helping to grow the vision there, to help create one of the strong and powerful programs in the province, right?
Mhm.
So I'm curious, you could have continued to just do what's safe and comfortable and stay at St. Roch and have all these blessings come into your life. What inspired you to throw your hat in the ring, to take courageous action, go all in and sort of go all in on Team O?
I kind of felt like, it's an opportunity, to touch more as many lives as I can. It's an opportunity for myself to grow as a coach,
Mhm.
to experience a different avenue of football, to meet kids outside of the realm of just my school, and have an opportunity to kind of be a part of the journey. I know for myself, there's so many people who've touched my life, and whether it's I met them for a day or they, I've known them for years, where they've shaped my journey to becoming educator or a coach and a player myself. So I
Mhm.
feel like I don't like to waste an opportunity where I think I could really help somebody.
Mhm.
And I feel like the TMO position here, when it came up, I'm like, you know what, there's no, what's the worst that could happen here? All I could do is grow. All that anyone around me I think could do is really, they could grow. And I find it's a great opportunity to go ahead and jump in. And I'm just so excited about everything so far. And I've seen so much growth in these athletes. And just at St. Roch, for the time I've been there, I've seen so much personal growth in these young men, where
Mhm.
it's contagious, and it's kind of addictive in a way where you're like, this is great. I want to see this happen more with more people.
Mhm.
If you could touch one life, how many others can we touch? And I figure this is a great opportunity to learn and grow as a coach myself, and as a
Mhm.
lifelong learner, really. That's pretty much the way I look at it. Always learning, always growing, and the ceiling is always high, right?
Mhm. It's interesting as you share, and what I'm reminded of is this idea that great and transformational leaders only preach what they are willing to consistently practice themselves. And you, again, I'm a big word guy as well. I was very aware of the words you were talking about. You mentioned growth many times. You mentioned again this idea of opportunity, right? Of giving back. So it's interesting how the language we choose
Right.
really can determine our outlook on life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 1,000,000%. And the language that we use, as you mentioned, I found too, which has been really important to notice, is that this teaching young adults, uh, language is everything to them.
Mhm.
I found that if they feel as though you understand them, you
Mhm.
know, um, then it's easier to grow together and to earn that respect, right? Because we all know, sometimes if respect is not received, then you kind of just go in opposite directions, and the message is not getting through, or you're not as receptive to it. But with young people, as long as you keep the language consistent and clear, and they know that this is what the goal is, we all could go to the goal together. And that's at St. Roch, I've noticed that there's a sense of oneness at that
Mhm.
school, where I feel as though we're on the same page for the most part when it comes to what our goals are and how we want to get there.
Mhm.
Whether we win, whether we lose, it's anything that we've done has been as a group, has been together,
Mhm.
and that's awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
It's something, it's rare, to have that feeling. I've played many sports growing up, many sports, but there's something about football that
Mhm.
sense of, again, oneness. Whether
Mhm.
you win, whether you lose, just the journey in between. It just feels great.
Mhm.
Feels like you're part of something special, and I think these kids understand that.
Mhm.
So when we speak the same language, it's smooth, it's concise, and everyone kind of gets it, and we move along together.
Mhm. It's interesting as you share that. Again, it just it reminded me of the power of sport, right? And again, you've been a high quality athlete and coach, so I'm preaching the choir on how powerful sport is, whether it's taekwondo, whether it's football. But like you mentioned, that's kind of the one interesting thing about football is there is so much built-in like diversity in the fact of
Yeah.
it is accepting of all body types. It doesn't matter, what neighborhood you grew up in, what the color of your skin is. Like there really is a role for everyone. And I think just the size of a football, like you can really create a role for anyone. And I feel like there's just, again, like you had played a lot of sport. I just don't know if any sport has as much built-in opportunity as football. A lot of sports are beautiful. I just don't know if it has as much opportunity as football.
You're right. That's exactly that. It's I find you learn, like you mentioned, diversity in football, and I found too that like even just through adversity through football, how often do we go through that? Whether it's during a game, it's in a practice, you have an injury, you depend on, the ultimate sport where, obviously in Canada, 12 guys in the field at a time for a team, each and every one of those guys or girls, responsibility is as important as the next person's, and they lean on each other. So when one person doesn't do their job, we all know the impact of and how that works, and even in practice, so when you go through things in football, you learn and you grow, and then you have the best part about it is, well, you have another chance to get at it. You make a mistake, that's okay. Get on the next play. Get on the next play. As I grew up as a defensive back, and one of the things that I was always said to me is, hey, you know what? You didn't make a play. A ball was caught on you, or you dropped a pick. Guess what? Get the next play, right?
Yeah.
Forget it. Shelve it. Get the next play, right?
Yeah.
The short-term memory, right? And that whole concept, yeah, you're right. What other sport can you really get that in? And that's why when I say like when you win or when you lose, either way, it's as a team. This past also, we had also loss, and even in that loss, I'm looking around at the players, and you could tell everyone felt the same in that moment, and you feel a sense of pride in what you do and for each other, as brothers and sisters and everything. And this sport is just something special, and that's why we're still around doing it. That's why we'll keep doing it, because it's just like you said, there's so many great sports out there. I love sports in general. There's not many sports I don't like, but but football is that one where it's hard to not just fall in love with every aspect of what it does for you as a person and what you could get from it, right?
It's interesting that you mentioned that also bowl game, and one thing, like I remember again following it, from afar. What really resonated with me was, yes, there was some disappointment that you did not win the final game in terms of the scoreboard. But what I really love, though, is the message, is that you really went to celebrate the St. Roch football family, and you really acknowledge the student athletes, the coaches, the community at large, and just said, hey, we had a great season. Like that was one thing I thought, hey, that's next level, right? Like that's a next level, like being able to focus on the next play. And it was so interesting where, again, it's easy to sometimes point the finger and go, we should have won, we could have. But again, it felt like there was a sense of celebration on, hey, we may not have won the game on the scoreboard, but we had so many wins during the season. And that, Coach, was so evident, and I could feel that energy jumping out even on social media.
Thank you so much for that. It's funny you mentioned that, because you know what? Because the whole season we battled so much adversity, JT, like so much. Like from the beginning of the year, we lost a couple games because of some poor fits from other teams, and we're trying to scramble to find games, and we had that big test against Huron Heights, and we saw the heart in our team in that day, and that's when we realized you guys are special, and we had a thin roster, it was tough, and what we said to ourselves, guys, what are we gonna do? This is our team. We could say, what, we're gonna make excuses for ourselves and pack it in, or we're gonna come out every single day and work as hard as we can and leave it on the field. And so celebrating those little things, like you mentioned, right? We celebrated the journey and the process, not so much the result, but the process of what we had gone through day in, day out. And I think that was what I've noticed everyone kind of saw and was able to agree with, was that, yeah, we went up, we went down, we went up, we went down, we went up, but we're coming out of here with our heads held high, because we knew that there were a lot of battles, that we really are proud of. So with all things considered, it's good to see that the morale was really good and everyone felt the same way. And like you said, there was no finger pointing, there wasn't any of that. And we're excited for what we did together. And, and our team, a lot of the seniors, especially the seniors, they get it, their last ride together, and that emotion about, leaving your brothers and sisters to go on to the next level. And it's
Mhm.
so special, as you know, too, as a coach, seeing that and being a part of that journey, and just understand that these guys understand what the whole goal was. And it's life, it's not just to win that trophy or medal. It's what have you gained from this? It's going to carry you next tomorrow,
Mhm.
and that's what we constantly preach, post game and pre-game and
Mhm.
on the field when adversity hits. This is life. It's everything we
Mhm.
do here is to signify what's going to happen in life.
Mhm.
And for the most part, they understand.
Okay. It's interesting as you share that, I'm reminded of this idea that all high performers in any area of life, whether we're talking academics, whether we're talking relationships, finances, business, is the importance of being, yes, goal oriented, but process driven. And
Yeah,
it's like you said, it's being able to being part of the process is learning to acknowledge and celebrate those wins along the journey, because that's really where the blessing is. And that
yeah.
when you come from that space, it's amazing how that passion naturally oozes out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we first started out coaching, or my first couple of years, and being a brand new program, and we were very fortunate to get some really talented athletes out to the school, and it took us a little while to win. And I remember we went to the the Roch junior championships 3 years in a row. We lost 3 years in a row, right, to the same
Mhm.
team, and the boys, just knew how close we were every single time, and it took those losses on the field to really gain the insight and understand what we're trying to work towards going forward, because we became really successful after that. But you don't really appreciate it you until you lose,
Mhm.
right? Like, you have to lose, and even I say the term lose, but I don't really agree with how, like, the term lose.
Yeah.
To lose, like, I'm saying lose, but like, I don't think you ever lose really. If you have the right mindset, it's you're learning. I find, it's I'd rather lose a game, and if I know I'm going to learn more from it than winning a game and not have learned anything at all, right? Because again, it just comes back to life. Okay, like, okay,
Mhm.
we've done it on the field, but now it's going to happen when we graduate. What's going to
Mhm.
happen when I meet, my future employer, or how am I going to deal with, my team in another situation, or whether it's an athlete, as an athlete, or as a person in the workforce.
Mhm.
It's You got to win. That's what winning is, I think. And
Mhm.
so losing doesn't really fit the vocabulary as much. But
Yeah.
I say it because obviously it's a language we understand, but
Yeah.
I don't really take it that way.
Well, again, the reminder of the power of perspective, right,
Yeah.
on anything in life. And as you were sharing that, I was really reminded of that Nelson Mandela quote, right? I never lose. I either win or I learn.
All
And
right.
it's interesting that when you start to approach life that way, and you start to, hey, it's I either win or I learn. Like, that's it. Like, those are the only two options. It's
Yep.
amazing how much lighter it feels, and then it almost allows you to detach from external outcomes, whether it's numbers
Hmm.
on a scoreboard, whether it's I mean, you're an educator, whether it's what number you got out of 0 to 100 on a test, or even
Yep.
as we get older, the number of zeros in our bank account, right? So again, I love, like, that win or learn. It simply allows us to live more from the inside out as opposed to the outside in.
Exactly. 100%. And again, through this sport of football, this
Mhm.
is how, wow, it's so easy to learn that concept through this
Mhm.
game. And yeah, and that's what I think has been very consistent throughout the journey. You know,
Mhm.
Even my kids are young, and they're into soccer and martial arts as well. And
Mhm.
my youngest is really competitive, and if she doesn't win a game, then she's better now, but she used to be really upset. She'd be hard on herself, and now I've seen so much growth in her, just because of the fact that she's understood that if I'm better than I was yesterday, if I'm having fun doing that, I'm winning. And
Mhm.
as a 9-year-old, she's kind of understood that, and I'm so happy to see that. And I hope that we could all kind of just understand the same concept in life, right? It might
Mhm.
change our mindset a little bit.
And what a beautiful blessing, right? Being able to bless your kids with, right? Like, that idea is, if I'm a little bit better, than yesterday, right? That you're almost taking that Kaizen philosophy, right? The 1% better than I was yesterday. It's amazing how, again, it's freeing because you're not comparing yourself to other people, their gifts, their talents and abilities, and you're just running your own race, as cliche as that is.
Exactly. 100%. No, I agree.
Okay. No. So I'm curious, you can tell you're in a very tight-knit community. You can tell that, there's a lot of love in the St. Roch, family. I was about to say just football, but you can tell it's bigger than that. Oh, yeah. So I'm curious, what are you looking most forward to in this next adventure for you? Leading and serving as, a Team U16 men's tackle coach.
I'm looking forward to seeing different perspectives on how on coaching, different perspectives on just being able to have that relationship between yourself as a coach and athletes. And because I find that, obviously being, in the GTA, it's a tight little box, right? Whereas now being a part of the team, not only that, just being able to travel and to experience football in different provinces and to get, again, I want to meet coaches out there and just kind of get different insight and share resources and being able to come back and, and ask myself, okay, how did I grow from this whole experience? What have I learned? And not just that, like, what did I give others in order to see how their lives have changed and how they've gotten, some kind of an improvement in their lives. So my goal is to really, first and foremost, is to help these student athletes get to their next level, get to their next goals. And all of them, if they're going to be on Team O, they're going to be passionate. They're going to want to be there, right? They're going to want to be there. And that's good to know because, like we said earlier, with that passion, it's easier to serve. Like, actually in your book, right? I think it was chapter 6, you talk about bringing it, right? And the whole it factor and what it is. And I find myself, I'm very energetic and I have that attitude where I just want to, be able to serve. And through that leadership, it kind of helps. And I kind of want to bring that same energy to Team O, because I found that I've coached in other areas too, whether it be the CFC prospect game. And I only had those guys for a really short period of time. But I got to meet some athletes here who to this day, who I remember seeing at one of our Friday Night Lights games. He played for a crosstown rival in town, and he came by and he said, "Hey, what's up, coach?" And we spoke, and he's doing a great job at Waterloo. We had a good talk, and he's such a great person. And you can see the leadership that he's gained from that, and just the fact that he came back to say, "Hey, coach, just want to say thank you for everything," and it was awesome. Just a little nugget of our existence together made some kind of an impact on it, right? So if that could happen, I can only imagine what could happen, being able to spend this time with the Team O kids, right? We'll have our training camp together. We'll have our, a week and a half together. I'm looking forward to being able to have, forge relationships with these athletes and coaches and the staff at Team O and see where that grows from. I just want to start somewhere and see, again, back to opportunities, right? See what opportunities could kind of flourish through a positive experience for all. So
I love what you shared, and a couple of things jumped out at me. We talk often on the huddle about this idea of like servant leadership. Like, what is that? And what I again heard from you was this idea. It's helping and supporting others along their journey. It's about helping them bridge the gap to their next level of greatness. And that's a daily, that's an ongoing process. And it's interesting. How do you get there? It's like you talked about, and you've said these words many times. You talked about the importance of a willingness to grow on your part, and then a willingness to give unconditionally, right? And it's funny how that when you unconditionally grow and give, that allows you to actually truly serve the hearts of others. And that, at the end of the day, is how you create and live a rich and fulfilling life.
Absolutely agree. And even just you having me on this show is that exact example. Just here's an opportunity. You're giving myself an opportunity to share. I could grow, you could grow, we could all grow. Anyone watching this podcast has a chance to take something from it and grow, like you mentioned earlier. And that's well, there's nothing better than that at all, again, feeling fulfilled. uh Again, I feel like that fulfillment comes from, like you mentioned earlier, serving. And as educators, it's easy for us because that's kind of what we devoted our lives to earlier on, to say, I want to serve and give back to students. And how blessed are we to be able to do that in the classroom and the
Mhm.
football field and these different ways. And it's just been a blessing,
Mhm.
to be a part of that whole process for everyone that I've pretty much been able to coach or teach.
Mhm.
So, and they've been teaching me a lot more than they think I'm probably teaching them.
It's interesting, right? When you approach life, like, what could I learn from this person? You start to understand that you can learn from anyone. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter that their title, doesn't matter if you are the teacher, they're the student. Like, you can
Yeah.
learn from anyone if your mind's truly open to it.
Exactly. And funny you mentioned that too, because I'm thinking specifically about an athlete who he just finished his fifth year with us. And I said to him on the awards day, he was our MVP. And I said to him, and I said to the group, I said, guys, I go, this is somebody who I've learned from, 5 years here. And he's been, open to communicating with me, on the field or off the field. He's got issues, come to see me. And it's very rare to have a kid understand that very early on. So I mentioned that. I'm like, it's it's easy for us as a coach or someone as a coach to say, you know what, I know it all, and do what I say, and that's it, right?
Mhm.
But with this guy, it's he'd look at me, we talk, and I could see like his passion and his understanding, and we'd have conversations all the time during games, before games, after games, and it really helped. And so I told him I was going to miss him really much because what he had brought to the program was something very unique, and it's a sense of, like you said, JT, just being open, right? Being open, and just being like a parachute, and being able to just put yourself aside and say, you know what, it's not about me, okay? It's about these guys, and hear them out. Because again, not only that is, how often do we have adolescents who have so much to say or want to say, but maybe don't have the opportunity to be heard? And
Mhm.
so again, you have the football field example, but then that's also life, right?
Mhm.
And that's again where we both grow together in that process. So I really appreciate him,
Mhm.
and just making me a better player, or sorry, better coach,
Yeah.
and better leader as well.
Again, and I love that humbleness, right? Like that common confidence in your own skin that you can learn. And what it reminded me of, and again, I know you can appreciate this as an educator, is, I think back to early in my career where it's like I was at a very academic school, and we want to give this illusion of perfection, that I know everything, like that I'm a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
And then how often you try to give this illusion of perfection, and then the young people, like, they can smell it. Like, they know
Yeah.
that you don't know what you're talking
You
about.
know.
And it's interesting. You kind of, you put your reps and sets in, and you start to realize, you know what? I don't know the answer yet, but I'm going to find out, and I'm
Yeah.
going to search, and I'll get back to you. And it's
Yeah.
interesting how getting to that place, you actually develop deeper and more rich connection, because
Yeah.
they start to see you as, like, you're just like a human being. Like, you
Human.
have your strengths, you have your quote unquote weaknesses, and you're human like that.
Exactly that. That's exactly it right there. Yeah. We are, guess what? We're making mistakes just like you. And they appreciate you and they respect you more for that, like you said,
Yeah.
and that goes a long, long way, a long way. And just admitting, as putting the pride aside and say, hey, you know what? I was wrong, but I will make it right. Promise you that. I'll work towards it, and
Yeah.
that's important for us all to understand. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm curious. I want to be respectful of your time and energy. So I have one last
100%.
question for you. We live in a busy and distracted world, that really, I find at times glorifies that, life has to be a grind. And yes, we all fall into those moments at times, but it is important to stop, to slow down, to just allow ourselves to be more. So I'm curious, if we have a student athlete, a parent, or another coach who's thinking about maybe throwing their hat in the ring and coming, to TMO, what would you say to them of what, why would it be a meaningful experience for them?
I would say again, back to that word, opportunity. Opportunity. take advantage of opportunities in life, because you may not get the same opportunity again. When they come and they go, they may not come back. And if you're thinking about something and you're not sure, but you thought about it, take that shot.
Mhm.
Take that shot, because what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Someone's going to learn from that experience. Yourself, somebody else. There's going to be growth in it. And so at the end of the day, I think that a lot of times as an adult, we grow hesitant sometimes on making decisions.
Mhm.
Even myself, again, I have a busy schedule, but I say to myself, okay, can I fit this in or can I fit that in? The answer is, if you want to, yeah, you will fit it in, right?
Mhm.
So then I have to remind myself, no, if you really want this, then you'll find time, or you'll find that opportunity. So take the opportunity and go with it.
Mhm.
Because if you're thinking about it, then there's a good part of you that there's something that's special that you have that you want to give, that
Mhm.
that people could kind of benefit from. So go ahead, take that shot and do it. There's no wrong in it, right? And you'll fulfill yourself once you know that, and you're gonna have regret otherwise, right? We'll never, if you don't try, you're never gonna know, and then you're gonna have to live with that, right? Unfortunately. So just
Mhm.
do it. Take the opportunity and run with it.
Okay. As Nike says, just do it, right?
Just do
Just do it. Okay.
it.
So I'm curious, brother, if anyone has any questions about you, whether it's, maybe they want to learn more about, the St. Roch family, maybe they want to learn more about, Team O, is there a way for people to connect with you and just really learn
Yeah,
more?
absolutely. Yeah. So the best way, like, I'm on Instagram, through our St. Roch Instagram page. I don't know, I could share it with you or now,
Yeah.
or okay, yeah. So I could just go onto my phone to remember exactly the handle, but Instagram is probably the best way. Also on Twitter.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you that right now. So through Instagram, our St. Roch account is just St. Roch Ravens Football, all one word. So ST dot and then Roch Ravens Football, all one word. That's our main
Okay.
account. I actually run the account.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way to get through to me. But not only that, Twitter, I'm pretty active on that as well. So my Twitter account is at Jerome Walker 02. So all one word, Jerome Walker 02. And it'll be Coach Walker. Those are probably the best ways to connect with me. And from there, that's the best way. That's probably the
Okay.
best way, other than directly contacting the school, but that'll probably be a little bit harder going through the
Okay.
different. But yeah, Instagram, I'm on it all the time, so that's probably the best way to reach me.
Okay. And I'll be more than happy to share out those links on Instagram, on Twitter, in the
Yeah.
description. They're on Facebook, YouTube, or the podcast. So thank you for sharing those.
Perfect.
I really want to take a moment to thank you, Jerome. I want to take a moment to thank you for the great man you are, the great dad, the great teacher, coach, mentor, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. The one thing I definitely resonated with me since we connected was just your passion, just your passion for life, and really helping to serve those along their journey, wherever they are on their journey, and just how it's not words with you, it's an ongoing commitment. So just thank you for inspiring me and reminding me what the game of life is all about.
No, thank you. I can say the same thing, though, JT. I appreciate everything. And I've been reading your book, and it's been really, really awesome just kind of connecting to know you on a more personal basis. And it same exact resonation. And it's been perfect to see that. And I do appreciate that and the opportunity, in life. So thank you. And I'll be seeing you soon, looks like,
Yeah.
too. Well, with all the TMO activities coming up, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that journey as well. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and thank you, brother. I receive it. So, folks, Coach Walker dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sport, but more importantly, in the game of life. And as I remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So, my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. And as I remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from this conversation is if it resonated with you, if it touched your heart, then please share it with a friend, a teammate, a loved one, or just someone you feel that needs to hear this message. The more people we have listening, understanding, applying these simple ideas to their life, the brighter this world will be. As always, I look forward to chat with you next time in the huddle. Have a blessed rest of your day. We'll chat soon, everyone.
Take care.